Hi, I'm Harut Markarian, and this is Mobility and Inclusion, the show where we share the powerful stories of people with disabilities and daring entrepreneurs making waves in our world. From technological innovations to best practices in business, we'll learn what it really means to live in an inclusive and universally designed environment. Welcome to a new episode of Mobility and Inclusion. I am your host, Harut Markarian, and I am joined today with a truly remarkable person, Minerva Garcia, also known as Minie. And we're going to talk about how you can improve your financial situation, right? Basically strategies that will put you at a better financial situation. But before we do that, Minie, first of all, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to be back, Harut. Thank you for having me back.
Of course, I'd love to have you. Before we get going, please introduce us a little bit, talk to us about yourself a little bit, just a quick bio, if you will, of where did you start and what are you doing right now?
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. First and foremost, Harut, thank you very much. Such an interesting way in how we met. But a little bit about myself. I'm actually an immigrant from the Philippines. And so, I'm very Filipino. So if you do not understand some of the words that I say right now, it's the accent. Just blame it on the accent. But anyway, I came here in the United States in about 1989, immigrated here, kind of like most immigrants wanted to get the American dream, right? But before coming here, I actually prepared myself to get into a high paying industry called the healthcare industry. Because back home, what we learned is that, as long as you go to good school, get a good grades, pass, and then get a good career, you're set. You're financially.
We all learned that, right? We all learned that.
Yeah, we all learned that. I'm kind of like a little bit of in a competitive side. So I push myself a little bit more in school. But so, yeah, fast forward, I came here in the United States with that paradigm in my head as far as being my idea of success and my idea of being wealthy. So I did work so hard. I became a physical therapist. And right now, actually, I've been a physical therapist for about 30 years. And I came here, migrated here in the United States in Los Angeles. So ask me about those hospitals. I probably work in one of those hospitals because it's been that long, right? And what I was doing is actually I was pursuing a career. I love what I do. And so I was in that healthcare industry as an aide. And in humble beginnings, I loved it, what it means to help my patient. And I've been a patient myself too, being a breast cancer survivor of about 25 years now. Woohoo! Right? And so I love that. I love that industry. But more than anything, the reason why I love that industry is I believe that industry will provide me the wealth that I needed. So we're getting paid very well. Well, or so I thought. Until 3 years ago, I got, I came to this crossroad in your life. I'm ready to retire or thinking of wanting to retire. Human beings at some point, they kind of like think that, well, I don't want to work all the time, right? and then I was just looking back, said, but what's going on financially? I said, I knew I was not ready and that my heart is not being filled anymore because I support a charity group called FACT Alliance, Fight Against Child Trafficking. And at that point, financially, it's not meeting the needs for my family at the same time having this amount of money. So then, you ask one question and you insert a doubt. Am I really in the right track? I was just thinking 30 years. It's only now that I'm asking that question. But you know what? 30 years or 20 years, it doesn't matter. It's a good thing that question came across because I learned that the quality of your life is based upon the question that you ask yourself. And so I'm glad that I asked that question because it was answered through an invitation from a friend of mine. She invited me on a financial education. I think it's our homework. It's our homework to have a guest that evening. It so happened actually the anniversary, fourth year. It's the eve of or October 31st. So it's coming up soon, exactly 4 years. But I was the only guest. So it's almost like I got infused so much in the financial information. And I said, wait, all these years I never knew this other half portion. I mean, I will not deny the fact going to school, if that's to learn the craft, to learn what you're passionate about, is really amazing. I support that. And then being able to go through a career, I support that. You know what? But the other half of the equation, as far as the wealth is concerned, I learned that evening 4 years ago, and I'm just so excited about it. And so
you bring up a lot of good points. You bring up a lot of good points. So I actually have several questions for you. So first thing you said that really resonated with me is that you love what you do, right? And I'm the same way. Like ever since I started working, and I'm like you. You know, I went to school. It was always like go to school, get a good education, and then find a good job, and then you'll be good, right? That was the that's how we were brought up. That's the environment that we lived in, and I think most people live in that sort of environment until we get into that illumination period,
like
if
that
you will,
word,
right?
illumination, right?
Yeah, and so one thing that I really want to mention before we get into the other stuff, that if you are not happy with what you're doing, just quit and go do something else. Because I can say this confidently. I can say that I have never gone to work ever since I started working. I've never gone to work just for the paycheck, right? Because I love what I do. Until today, I love what I do, and of course I expect better things. And that's what I loved about what you just said. You know, you enjoyed your career. You know, you got your education, you enjoyed your career. But now comes the other side of things that we don't learn in school, right? How to set ourselves financially, right? Financially, so we are not dependent on anyone. So what's
Yes.
the strategy that we're going to talk about today?
Oh, wow. You know, the last time I was in your show is as we were talking about, all the strategies that I learned, 3 simple things, right? But at the end of that, we talk a lot about taxes. Well, the end of the year is coming, that 2021. And if we look back, actually what happened is that now we're realizing that, hey, the government printed a lot of money.
40% of all dollars printed got printed in the last year and a half.
Correct. Actually, in the last quarter is a lot of them already. And so now you sort of like wonder. In the past, I would not care. I'll just pay my taxes. Well, as a matter of fact, I mentioned that in our last one. I sort of like got a PTSD on taxes. I was like, oh my gosh, every year it's like almost you feel the anxiety of like I have to pay taxes. And when I finally learned that it's really that simple, you just look at it head on, and that it's because of my ignorance on what taxes is and all that made me feel insecure about taxes. But this time, I come in a different information and just would like to give everybody that the sense of hope that in spite of the fact that the government is bringing us all these taxes, there are strategies that we do not have to get sucked into, if only if we educate ourselves. You know, I was just reading through taxes and I just realized taxes started right from the very beginning of time.
Yeah.
I'm not to push on the Bible, but I read in the Bible, that's where I heard the saying, give to Caesar what is Caesar, give to God what is God's. That's taxes, right off the bat, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes you make it think that taxes is like the new thing. Or some of the myths that we're, trying to believe because trying to ignore and not educate ourselves about taxes is that the taxes is a partisan thing. Like it is a Democrat thing or it's a Republican. It's not, it's a whole chicken thing, not the left wing and the right wing, right? A friend of mine said, are you left wing or right wing? I said, well, I'm for the whole bird, right? So the same thing with taxes. Taxes is like just taxes as is right from the get-go. And I learned, guess what? Lincoln taxed us, the very first president that taxed us. And see, here's the thing. I don't think people know that when we got taxed during that time, it's because of just to compensate or for the war that we lost and we needed. And then he had it only for 10 years. Would you believe that, Harut? They only said, 10 years. And then after that, we're done. We're good, right? And then so every time our country ended up getting into this trouble, war, World War I, World War II, and the need, then yeah, they bring up the taxes. Kind of like, good. Yeah, I can understand, right? But do you know that in 1970, do you know how much is the highest tax that we ever actually reached, that this country ever reached?
Probably 3-4%.
Are you kidding me? You know what? They taxed people 91%.
That was during the war, right? Right after the war or something like
Right
that.
after the Second World War.
Yep.
It's interesting that it's almost like, for me, I was thinking like, okay, suppose I earn $1,000. Of course, let's just say, suppose I earn $100,000 for this year. 91% of my money is actually theirs. It's like the reverse of what you call the tithe, right? You give the 10th to God, and then you leave off the 90%, right? No, it's the other way around. You give the 90% to them and you leave off the 10th. I said, wow. But then, of course, we have like Reagan dropped our tax, Reaganomics and everything. So it's just really very good. Well, why am I talking about this history? It's really very important to realize that taxes is really not evil. It is a necessary thing until there comes such a time in our country that, guess what? They got used to that taxes and they never really stop. Even though we don't have any more wars, we don't have anything. Like, kind of like, yeah, if I were you, if I'm giving you money, and then, people forget about why it is for, because people are so busy. Say, for example, with the emphasis on my industry and my sphere of influence, the nurses, the doctors, very busy about what their craft they're doing. They're helping people in the medical field. They don't have time to listen to the history. They don't have time to introspect and said, well, wait a minute. How come you're taxing me big? Right? Yeah. So that's why I wanted to bring that in, because there's really a history and the reason why but then it so happened at some point they stopped saying that. They enjoyed, the government enjoyed it. So then it becomes like a number one thing that's happening in us. And so that's why we were, I was just sharing with you before that, you know what? Taxes are coming up. We know it. Our government says, they did not shy away in saying like, oh, we're going to tax you 34, 48, percent. What, and who gets taxed?
The middle class.
Middle class said, you know what? I researched what is the average income of a doctor? $400,000 a year. Average income of a nurse, $150,000 to $250,000. A physical therapist, the same thing, $150,000. So, well, I guess I have to support the taxes, right? Yep. And but we never knew. We just thought it was just like me in the past. I thought it's just like a necessary evil. Well, whatever, whatever they do. And then every now and then we talk to our tax preparer at the end of the year. How else can I cut down my taxes? So they will throw this 401k, they will throw in this IRA, right? And then so that instead of you're showing them you're earning, let's say 200,000, you're only earning this much. Yeah. But the government is wise. They limit you. If you're going to put it on 401k, it is nice before. The history before is that our employers match that. I give 100, they give 100, right? 100%. Now they make it sound the same, but I give 100, every 100, I give 10. So, and then I asked a lot of my friends who are in the hospitals, medical field, said, do you know how much your employer match you? Oh yeah, they do. And then when they see, just check, like just for fun, just check your HR and find out how much. And they didn't know that they're not matching anymore.
No, and if they are, they're matching a very, very small percentage.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a cap, right? The company that I used to work for, they'd say, oh, we'll match 3%. Okay, I'll put 3%. Oh, but then they said, but then if you hit $1,000 and $750, That's it. No more than that, right? And so I figured, okay, that's good. It's free money, but my money is growing someplace else where I have to wait. I am 59 and a half years old.
And you have no control over it.
No control because it's in the market. It's going up and down the market, right?
Yeah.
But then 4 years ago, I learned that there is another vehicle where you can put it, where the rich people and the millionaires, the upper class earning people, put their monies.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, you don't have to be an upper class.
Yeah.
Even though you're earning little, you can avail of that vehicle.
Yeah.
And I
As
said,
you said, it all comes back to financial education, right?
correct. Financial education. And then I mentioned before, the financial industry makes it sound lucrative, and they sound so the highfalutin. I mean, of course, portfolio is a portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Growing up in high school or elementary, I learned portfolio is like a folder. That's how I imagine it. But then here they make it look like, like a gold infused folder that the bank is holding, right? So, but no, it's so simple.
Well,
It's a matter of like where you put your money.
I always say this: if you can't use it, if you can't explain it clearly and concisely, then you either don't understand it or you're trying to confuse the person in front of you. Which is
Correct.
what the financial so-called advisors, I
Yes.
mean, nothing against them, but that's what it is at that ultimately. But let's go into the strategy that you're going to propose here. So what's the strategy A, and who is it going to benefit?
Okay. So first strategy I would like to do, first and foremost, I would suggest is that they sit down with somebody who will do a comprehensive financial analysis. The why that is really very important is because until we know what we have, it is really hard to make a plan.
Absolutely.
For healthcare workers, that's the thing. We want quick fix. In pain, just give me a medication and then that's it. We're good. In finances, we really need to, I think they're learning now. They're learning now that they need to understand. You don't just give Zoloft or whatever so somebody's depressed. You need to sit down, right? It's the same thing with finances. Just because you think you have $1,000 left over at the end of your paycheck, and that means that, oh, I'm going to invest my $1,000. No. Number one strategy is sit down with somebody who you trust, that will have no purpose and no motive but to help your family, and to do a comprehensive financial analysis, which I am glad my company does that. We sit down, and guess what? If you do this in the banks or in other financial industry, they charge you about $500 to $5,500. If they see your money, you have bigger money than $5,500. They said, oh, there's so many things that we need to tackle around $5,500. Guess what? We do is all free. For those who have money and those who have millions of money, doesn't matter. Number one strategy, you need to sit down on that one. Second, you need to find out where you want to go.
What you always,
where you want to go. How much do you want to have at the end of your work days?
Yeah. When you decide to retire, how much money is enough for you, right?
Correct. And it's funny you mentioned that when you retire, because for me, for some reason, I don't like the word retire. I always say in the Bible, God never says there's retirement. I was just saying, you just stop working for somebody else, right? When you stop working for somebody else and you decide to do something else, where do you want to go? What do you want else to do? And definitely whatever we do, when we walk out this door, we needed money to spend. So at least you know that, right? Yep. And so once you know it, it's so much easier for somebody to sit down. Okay, here are a host of strategies that you can do. And when you sit down with somebody else, financial industry, you need to be able to, they need to be able to identify with you the 3 ways our money gets taxed. Okay, I'll just jump into the taxes really quick, because oftentimes we focus our money on what we call the taxable column, right? Where we have our checking, our savings, CDs, annuities, and all that, and whatever they say there. And then, if we go to a tax preparer, they say us to put our money in 401k if you're company offers that, or IRAs. Okay. Now, guess what happened in 1998? They're realizing that they're taxing a lot of these government people, high income, right? So what did they offer? Instead of IRA, they offer Senator Roth introduced Roth Ira. Right? So, okay, it's better than nothing, right? Because that is now in the column called the tax exempt or tax free, tax advantage. They're all in the same AKA name, right? And in that side is actually the Roth IRA, and then also a private placement. I love how Tony Robbins mentioned this. You know, Tony Robbins, when he made that book, Money Master the Game, and interviewed all of these billionaires and millionaires and asked them and said, you know what? You got this. Some people don't have it, or a lot of people don't have it. What is this? Where should we put? And they mentioned that private placement. So now you sit down and put your money on the private placement. So if you sit down on a comprehensive analysis, they should be able to show you all of these. Where is your money? Is it tipping all on the taxable side, or is it tipping, or is it balanced where you have everywhere else? I mean, I'm not saying you're not supposed to put on taxable, but if your tax exempt is empty, you know that your boat has holes.
Yeah.
Even with a Roth IRA, your boat still has holes, because it still follows that you have to wait until 59 and a half, and your money is up and down the market. I mentioned to you before, like people talks about, oh, my money, I earned this today, or I earned last month, last year, my money grow up. But then they never say when they lose their money, right? They never mention about that. So now comes the next strategy, is that feel that tax exempt strategy. Nobody is limited in a tax exempt strategy, the private placement. And I think it's just like geniusly designed. And it's called putting your money in an index account, whether in an index annuity that blocks the hole. So let's say, for example, you have money in the 401k. There are things right now when you actually could access your 401k money, depending on your employer, if they will allow you, even though you're still employed. But normally 401k, you access it once you leave your work. And now what are we going to do with this money that you grew for me, that I haven't paid taxes, right? Will I leave it there going up and down the market and then wait until it's really massive that I pay the taxes? Or do I protect it? So what I help people, guess what? We can hold that off and then move it over. So now you stop the bleeding, block the holes, but you still have to pay Uncle Sam for what you haven't paid. But then now it will now continue to grow, this time in an index where even if the market crashes, guess what? You don't lose it. Companies out there, I cannot mention names, right? But there are companies out there, guess what? They guarantee 7%. You're not going to lose. Literally, you double your money in 10 years. And then you have what they call the lifetime guarantee income. So if you're one person is unsure whether you have retirement money, here's guarantee. Even though you run out of money from that money that you move, guess what? You still get that money until you pass. Or if you have more, then you can pass it on to a legacy. Like if I have my charity. And then there's another thing that is really amazing, is that how we help them is that, have you heard of insurance? Life insurance? People are so shy about asking life insurance. My mom has been a broker with a very prominent company for very long years. Mm-hmm. But it's funny that when we were talking, I was telling her as I'm moving my industry from healthcare to a wealthcare industry, right? She said, yeah. And we were comparing notes. What she knew about insurances then is so different than now. And so I told her, why did you sell that type of life insurance? And it's almost like accusatory. I'm like, oh, forgive my mom, bless her heart. She's so good. She's the reason why I am here on earth and then also here in the United States. Anyway, but she told me, but that wasn't offered before, that type of insurance. What is this life insurance? Guess what? This life insurance is actually could be also a place where you can put your money. It's called a cash value life insurance. You are protecting yourself something happens to you, you cannot do two of the ADLs. Guess what? You can tap into that money. It's almost like a reserve money for when something happens to you, right? Or if something literally happens to you and God forbid, but it's always a good thing when God says it's time for you to come join my angels and hosts of other great people, right?
Another way of putting that, when you die.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Love that, Harut. I wanted, and harmonize. I wanted to make it like smooth,
It's all part of life.
It is. It's like 100% still is. I checked a few minutes ago. It's still 100%. It's going to happen, right? And so when that happens, guess what? Your family does not struggle, does not have to worry, or whatever legacy you want to leave, or whatever purpose for which God has designed you to be here and help, it'll be continued. Why? Because you have this kind of life insurance. Amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that is, guess what? Going back to our topic, tax-free.
Yeah.
Tax-free if you need to access it, right? And then so I was telling my daughter, I said, honey, you better learn how money works because it is tax-free. Everybody will probably tell you something different, but I just wanted to let you know that. Okay. Yeah. So that's one. I mean, how many have I said? I already said three. One, have to sit down with a comprehensive. Better know that they have all those three and see balance where your money is set. And then third, place it where you have like tax exempt.
Yeah.
Now, here's the deal when it comes to taxes. Our doctors, our nurses work so hard. I get so emotional thinking about this because I do have some friends who have to make a hard or a difficult decision in the past few months. When they mandated the vaccination. I mean, I'm not for vaccination, but I am for understanding. Okay. So, but I got myself vaccinated. I made that conscious decision for a different purpose. But if I was not pushed to think of other purpose, I would not either. But I don't shame the ones that have chosen. So that's one. It is the mandate that that you have to. We lost the choice.
Yeah, to your point, we were at the hospital, as you know. I just my wife delivered our second baby. Yeah, and because of the mandates, actually, the hospitals were running really short on staff. So that I saw that firsthand in the hospital. So yes. I understand completely what you're talking about. But yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So last year or a year and a half ago, they're the heroes of our country. Absolutely. Man, they really, talk about it. They're heroes, And then now it's almost like they're the villain. Mm-hmm. Is the villain because of, and then it ended up like it divided the whole industry. Yeah. And so it's really tough. And the families on each of those are affected. One is that they have to make a decision, and I've known in the hospitals, some of the hospitals that I've worked, they literally, it's either your job or no job. That's the mandate. I know you're in Glendale and I was just there yesterday, and then that's what it is. So I mean, it hurts me because I know I have some friends that have to decide differently. But then they do not know anything about finances. How can I handle this? Okay. Well, that's one. Next, I said, oh, by the way, the last of your money will get taxed. You're still going to get taxed because you're still going to show forth, right? Mm-hmm. And so some strategies that I always tell them, number one is own a business. Yep. Own a business. And you know this, Harut. That's why they said the business owners doesn't get taxed as much as we are. I would not say not taxed at all, but as much. Well, because that is our forefathers' founding decision. That's how we built this country. In the past, they're like about 90% entrepreneurs, business owners, and 10% employees. It flipped. Yep. Now it's 90% employees and 10% business owners. And so who are taxed? Of course, why would they tax the 10%? They will tax the 90% of people, right? Mm-hmm. And then so when it comes to taxes, I tell them like, own a business. And not just any business. Here's the thing. Here's what I discovered. In taxes, they're still discriminatory. If you are in a certain industry, you can only get tax, and you can only get tax write-off a certain amount, a certain percentage, and all that. Some of the tax preparers or CPA know it. Some of them don't. And that's what I discovered. And
that's the scary part of things, right? When the people who should know it and they don't.
Correct. So here's the thing. When I invited a friend of mine works in Wells Fargo. She's the head of the educational platform in finances there, right? And then I do have another friend. She's a CPA. Guess what? Invited to the same class that I attended, simple basic. And they go, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And that's when I said, okay, I don't want to go to the negative side. Okay, I'm glad that she knows it now. We have a mission to do. We need to bring it out in the world, this information. And I believe the more educated we are, the better our families and our country will be. Our country is so deep in debt. I tell you what, because we do not have an example of good money managers. And so that's why I went back to my healthcare friends, and I told them, said, guess what? There's something that we do not know in the healthcare bubble that is out there if we only take the risk. There's one word that I always keeps coming back to mind for the past few days, and that word is settle. I didn't realize how negative that word settle is for me. I thought it was just like a word, neutral, settle here, settle there. But recently it's just becoming like coming, I don't want to settle for less or settle for more, because life is ever evolving.
Absolutely. So to that point, I want to say this. I want to say that change is inevitable, but personal development is a choice.
Yes.
Right?
Very, very, very true, Harut. I am so glad that I got into what I'm doing right now, because it has become not just a financial industry, it is actually leadership and personal development program business with a very big financial compensation attached to it. And then one of a very good mentor of mine, Ed Milet, said exactly the same thing. Just in case you do not know, you're actually in a leadership and self-improvement industry with a very high compensation attached to it. And I just so love, you know what? I'm so blessed. I mean, I think I'll celebrate. I'll wear costume, whatever I'm going to do on October 31st, because that is the day actually when the grave of my old thinking about finances was broke loose. And then from then on, you know what, my heart is really out there for families that are struggling. And I will not be in the healthcare industry for no purpose at all. And so I go back and tell our nurses, just give me 30 minutes and let me share you what you have and what's coming for you without you knowing. Nothing is just because. There is always a purpose behind it. And then let's educate ourselves. And that's what I do. I reach out to them, healthcare to wealthcare, this, my
So
team.
how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, it's so easy to get in touch with me. I have my Calendly, but then go to my LinkedIn, Minie.Garcia, and then you will see their healthcare to wealthcare. And of course, my number is for everybody else's out there. You can see me also on my IG, Instagram, Minie.Garcia, and would love to sit down with you and dream with you and show you how it is really possible as long as we know and educate ourselves.
Awesome. That's really wonderful. And I appreciate you, bringing this knowledge forward and raising, hopefully we raised awareness today of what people can achieve by, just sitting down with you for half an hour and you showing them where they are and where they can be if they made small strategic changes in their finances.
Yes. Right? Yes, it doesn't have to be thousands and millions of dollars. That is the old myth that, they use the word invest. Invest doesn't sound like, I can invest time for my studies and learn and grow as a person. And I tell you,
investing in your financial education is also an investment that everybody should make, right?
yes, definitely. Invest on yourself.
Yep, absolutely.
Invest for that time. And Harut, well, thank you very much, Harut. I hope I will be able to give to your audience, value.
Absolutely. You were amazing. I think a lot of people would benefit from the information that we talked about today. A lot of people don't know enough about what we talked about today. So I really thank you, and I thank you for your time. And I'll see you again soon, hopefully, right?
All right. Yes. See you soon.
All right.
You're
Bye.
Bye.